You saw a hug that wasn't for you. No camera crew, no publicist, no press release. Nobody in that stadium was supposed to see it except one 10-year-old girl, and the rest of the world didn't find out for 2 days. And it still isn't the hug. It's the sound she makes. She said, "I got a kiss," 3 times in a row with a smile before she even looked down to see what he'd actually handed her. Her mother says she was so excited she still can't believe it happened. And when the world finally heard it, that sound moved money faster than Wall Street moves money into a small Texas nonprofit that hadn't asked a single human being for $1. Every charity on earth is engineered to run on guilt. So why did this one run on joy? Start in the suite, because the setup is the whole thing. AT&T Stadium in Arlington. 5 girls fighting cancer are sitting in a VIP suite with their families. A Plano nonprofit called Heroes for Children got them there, in a box donated by a health insurer. Hold on to that, because it's the last piece of corporate machinery in this story. Everything after it is unplanned. One of them is Olivya. She's 10. She's been in cancer treatment for over a year. Mid-show, Jimin comes off the stage carrying a small black keychain. He walks toward the suite. He finds her eyes first, then he hands her the keychain, hugs her, and kisses her on the cheek. She spins around, delighted, before he's even walked away. Then her mother said something afterward that changes the whole clip. She never lets herself feel different or self-conscious because she has no hair. Said with pride, not sadness. You can see it in her smile. Sit with that for a second. A child who spent a year deciding every morning not to feel like the odd one out, in a room of 80,000. And out of 80,000, he came to her. Then 2 days of nothing. When it finally went up on Monday, it came from the nonprofit's own account. No media budget, no plan. So what actually happens when nobody asks you for anything? You already know the machine, you've been inside it 1,000 times. The slow piano, the washed out footage, the voice explaining that for less than the price of a coffee. Every second of it engineered to do one job. Make sitting still feel like a moral failure. And the traditional model burns up to 40 cents of your dollar just to buy the ad that makes you feel guilty enough to open your wallet. But there's a cost nobody puts on the balance sheet. The moment you're asked, some part of you pulls back. That isn't cynicism. That's just how people are built. An ask creates an obligation. Obligation creates pressure. Pressure creates resistance. So you give and it feels like paying a bill, and then you close the tab feeling slightly worse than when you opened it. Now look at what happened here. Nobody asked. Heroes for Children posted a video of a kid being happy. That was the entire campaign. No appeal, no pitch, no guilt. And when they did finally open a $50,000 fundraiser, $50,923.87 cleared in less than a day. They said afterward that they'd made no fundraising plan and had never requested a cent of it. You're not watching charity, you're watching what happens when nobody's asked. Because giving here wasn't settling a debt, it was joining something. Every donation was a way of putting your hand on the same moment. That isn't charity psychology, that's concert psychology. But that only explains the speed. It doesn't explain the aim. So why this child? Why these 10 seconds out of 10 years of BTS being kind in public? For 10 years, BTS built a catalog around one instruction. Find the person who feels invisible. Not the choreography, the words. Love yourself, said over and over for 10 years. You are not alone in song after song. Aimed at the one person who's convinced that if anybody looked closely, they'd be found wanting. Then he walked off a stage and did it. And that's why the response wasn't measured. Because of who was watching. Think about who actually types out a donation at 3 in the morning in Jakarta. Somebody who was 14 once, headphones on, in a room where nobody around them spoke the language, listening to a group tell them they weren't the only one. That person's 26 now with a debit card. So put the two facts side by side. A fan base organized entirely around finally being seen. And a little girl who spent a year making absolutely sure nobody sees her as different. He walked past 80,000 people and found her. And that's the exact thing the industry has never once been able to model. Because for a decade, the argument against this fan base was that it's parasocial. That fans invented a person who doesn't exist and stayed loyal to the invention. Critics said it, your relatives said it at dinner. Then here's a moment that wasn't built for the internet. No press pit, no publicist, no announcement. 2 days before anyone outside that suite even knew it had happened. He did it when it wasn't going to trend. That's the only evidence that's ever mattered in that argument, and it arrived in the sound of a child screaming. So when the money moved, it wasn't a donation drive, it was a fandom proving a point. We were right about him. And the second half of that point, the half nobody posted, is we were right about ourselves too. And look at how it arrived. Not as a few large checks clearing the goal in one transaction, but as a total that kept climbing hour after hour for a week from people all over the world. Nobody sending it thought they were curing pediatric cancer. They were trying to be in the room. And the organization on the other end couldn't keep up. They set a $50,000 goal and blew through it. Raised it to $75,000 and blew through that. Raised it again to $100,000. 3 targets in 7 days, and every time they moved the number, it was already out of date. Every one of those goals was set by professionals who assumed generosity has a speed limit. Heroes for Children was co-founded by Jenny Lawson. The organization exists because 2 mothers in Texas lost their daughters to childhood cancer within 3 years of each other, met in the wake of it, and decided no other family should go through that alone. Lawson is one of those 2 mothers. She was in the building that night, and she said she could never have imagined it. That he walked directly toward the girl, that the second it happened, she spun around and squealed. Then the money started arriving from everywhere. Lawson has spent 2 decades running an organization that survives on other people's generosity, and she said the part that surprised her wasn't the hug. It was what came after. "It's unimaginable. It's just something I've never seen before," she said. And the reporting puts a number on what it buys. Direct assistance for 40 families next month. Rent, utilities, gas to the hospital and back, the costs that quietly decide whether a parent keeps working or keeps their child company. Then it did something a donation drive never does. It got up and walked outside. ARMY in Dallas partnered with Heroes for Children on the organization's annual fun run and called for a team, 1 month to the day after Arlington. Because sending money alone at 2 in the morning is a private act, and a private act doesn't satisfy what this feeling is. People needed to stand next to each other. For years, the read on this fandom was that it's noise, a metric with a hashtag stapled to it. What everyone kept missing is that the noise was never the point. Underneath it are a few million people who were handed a language for their own loneliness and spent a decade practicing what to do with it. Forests planted, disaster relief cleared, $1 million matched inside a day, and now a small pediatric cancer nonprofit in Plano, Texas that most of the planet had never heard of, funded past 3 separate goals by strangers all over the world who found it through a translation account. And none of it began as a plan. Jimin wasn't executing a strategy on that stage. There was no producer in his ear. He saw a kid in a box seat, and he went. That's the entire mechanism. But when you spend 10 years making compassion the default setting of a culture, you never have to ask that culture for anything. It just moves. Nobody had to be told what this was for. And that's what the guilt machine is really buying with its 40 cents on the dollar. It's buying the ASK. This didn't need one because the wanting was already there, sitting inside millions of people, waiting for somewhere to go. 10 seconds in a stadium turned into rent and fuel and medicine for 40 families who will never meet Olivya and will never know her name. So here's the argument I want in the comments. Every major charity in the world is built on guilt. The sad music, the statistics, the ask engineered to make you feel small enough to open your wallet. And a fan base with no board, no marketing budget, and no executive director just outraised that entire model in a single day by doing the precise opposite. By showing somebody happy and then saying nothing at all. So, is the guilt-driven model dead? Or is this a one-off that only works when you've got 90 million people already waiting for a signal and every nonprofit that copies it next year falls completely flat? Tell me which one you actually believe. And this same speed isn't only breaking charity, it's dismantling legacy live entertainment. The ticketing monopolies spent 20 years deciding what a seat is worth, and the exact same network architecture bypassed them on the Arirang tour. Click the video on your screen right now.